Well, welcome to Qdabra's weekly webinar, and today we're talking, this is Patrick Halstead. I'm actually live from Japan on a business trip here. It's late in the evening, actually it's early in the morning, and I'm pleased to have you all here. Today we're talking about how to handle images in your forms. We did this webinar, I want to say it was about 4 years ago, before the advent of FormsViewer. So we've refashioned the webinar, we've redone the samples, and I want to start off by just thanking a few people for this webinar. First off, Pete and Chris, great to see you guys here in the webinar. You guys have been an inspiration for us this year. You're really pushing the envelope with electronic forms and inspiring. I think you've inspired at least 3, if not 4 webinars this year. So I really want to thank you guys for being so innovative and helping us to kind of create these webinars with your ideas and everything. James Risch, our FormsViewer design, what do you call the senior developer / lead for the FormsViewer effort. He actually implemented the command that you're going to see today that we are going to feature in this webinar. And then Elmel Clemente, one of our premier form design divas, she's actually responsible for putting together the demo form that you see today and the changes. And then also I want to thank all of you for being here and making this weekly endeavor, sometimes weekly endeavor, possible. So without any further ado, today we're really talking about how to handle images. And this is, I think, become an interesting topic yet again because we have we have Pete and Chris especially wanting to submit images from their mobile devices and do so in a way that doesn't time out, right? So you've got these very high resolution cameras now on your phones, and you can snap a 10 megabyte, a 20 megabyte shot, and you pile these photos up, and it's going to take a long time. So we saw this issue with Formoda's forms, and the workaround there is it automatically shrinks the image. And so we've implemented the same technique for FormsViewer to shrink the image automatically, and we're doing it very similar to how, you'll see the demo in a second, how the iPhone works when you actually submit an email with images. It asks you, well, how big of an image do you want to send? And you have the option of selecting it. So we'll see that in a second. But the benefit there is to reduce the lag, prevent those timeouts. We also want to retain the resolution if they're doing some kind of text processing, like with Google's API. We do optical character recognition to extract the text from that receipt so we can search it later. The next topic that we're going to see today is how to limit the size. So let's say you can shrink it, that's great, but you might also want to limit it and just say, well, there's a 4 megabyte cutoff. So we'll see that technique. I'm also going to demo and show how to upload images. It's really important that you do this after you print out the image, which is the last item here, the PDF print. The pagination in the printing is important for images because the images can be large, so you want to end up putting 1 image per page. You want to paginate them, and you want to do that before you upload the images because the PDF generation doesn't have access to SharePoint all the time. So those are the 4 techniques we're going to go over today. First of all, I've got a quick poll for you just to get us kind of in this. I probably should have done this a minute ago. But quick question here is, do you have forms that capture photos? So I guess hopefully you can see that, and it looks like we've got a couple of responders already, so I guess you can see that. We'll let it go a few more seconds here. So it looks like most of you have 1 or 2 forms, and then there are a few that have more than a couple, and not that I know of, and I guess one person says definitely not. Nobody said no, but I want to add some. Okay, so that's kind of the first question. The second question I have for you is, well, what about mobile? Mobile is kind of the key scenario here because mobile latency, the bandwidth with your phone and the internet is slower, obviously, than if you're plugged into the wall. If you've got a very fast internet connection. So it looks like most of you are using mobile phones. About 60% of you saying yes there. So I'll close that out as well and continue on. So Before we do the demo, which is going to be soon, there's a few considerations. As I was preparing for this demo this week, I was looking around at how photos are processed on phones. The iPhone has a camera that takes a default 4:3 aspect ratio. It's different on Android. In addition, you can't necessarily tell the dimension of the photo by just looking at the image that's attached to the form. In InfoPath, in FormsViewer, you have the default picture control. If we look at our form, we're going to demo in a second here. Here's my expense report form. In here I have a receipt form, and this is just, if you look at it, it's just actually a default picture control. So if you look at it, it's just a picture control with picture properties. This is kind of out of the box, right? But the InfoPath form knows how big it is when it displays it. The HTML knows how big it is, but we can't actually query those dimensions from FormsViewer. So you don't have the ability to write a rule that says, well, to figure out how to scale it based on the dimensions, because you don't know exactly what dimensions the photo is. We're thinking about adding that to the command and adding the ability to query the dimensions, but for the short term, what that means is that sometimes you can't automatically scale it. So we have to ask the user to pick small, medium, large. So if we could automatically scale it, you might want to just pick if they're below a certain resolution, they're fine. But since we don't know what that is, we're going to ask them to pick it for us. The third consideration is that different browsers have different formats. Now, FormsViewer is in the browser today, right? Just like InfoPath Form Services was. So you've got the ability to deal with images, but not all browsers can handle different formats. So our command, our alter image command, actually has the ability to convert between formats, but in reality, you're going to be wanting to use JPEG or PNG, because not all of these other browsers support these BMP formats, for example, or GIF. And the browsers have size limits when you're submitting, so you want to keep that in mind. And then finally, if you're going to change the quality of the image, you'll see in a second we actually have a command. Part of the alter image command gives you the ability to change the quality. You can only do that for JPEG. So anyway, bottom line here is that you're going to want to use JPEG, and you're going to want to scale it to 1024 by 768 probably for most of the submit. When you want to reduce the size, that's going to be your goal, your target format and dimensions. So let's do the demo. So I'm going to do two demos. First of all, I'm going to actually show you a form that we developed that we'll make available as part of the package today. And this form is a simple form that I demoed literally 3.5 years ago. Maybe it's 4.5 years ago. It's quite a while ago. This form is just a test form. It allows you to attach an image, which we're going to do. And hopefully you can see my screen just fine. The image I want to attach here is, it's early there, so we're going to attach this image of what looks like wood, right? Grain of wood. And if I scroll down, this is quite a large image. It's about a 4 megabyte image. You can see how large it is down below here, 4,292,640 bytes. If I change this image, so I can quickly just change it to say I want to scale it down to 1024, and it will automatically, now it reduces the size of it, and you can see it's a cup of coffee on that that tabletop, a grain of wood tabletop. Now, in addition, this command that we have, this alter image command, which you can see at the bottom here, allows us to change the quality. So we could actually drop the quality of this to 5, and you can see that when I do that, you still can see the cup of coffee, but the image is a bit blurred. But the size is down there at 5,871. So you see the size drop from the original size when we did 1024 scaling, and then when we changed the quality, it dropped even further. So this command, really what we're doing today is we're showing you how to use this command in your forms to reduce the size of images that you send as part of your form payload, and that makes the submit go faster, right? That's the whole purpose of this talk today. Okay, so that's the first demo. Now, how did we do that? So let's go to the actual form, and here's the form in the InfoPath Designer, and you can see that I've got these buttons. One of them is large. So the first button I clicked was large, and that runs a command. And this command, you probably can't see this, but The command is alter image, and in fact I've got it in the slide deck here. If I go to the next slide, the command is alter image, image path, and then it's got some parameters. So let's take a look at this command a little closer. We'll do a much more interesting demo in a second, but just to get us prepared here, I want to show you what this command is actually doing. So in Forms Designer, which is the design portion of FormsViewer, you can go in and you can look at the command builder, and the command builder has this new command now called alter image. And the alter image command, then it gives you some details on what it does. It alters adjusts the quality of an image, changes the size, and it will build up the command for you as you put in these parameters. So you can look at each of these different parameters. It explains what they are. But in general, what you want is you want to specify an image, and you want to specify the image can be either static or dynamic. You can specify the width, the height. Obviously, you can change the quality. You can change the format, and then when we've done with this, the alter image command will succeed, and you'll see the new image. It will actually just replace the existing image with the processed image. So that's in a nutshell, that's a quick explanation of what the alter image command does. Let's take a look at another demo. So here I have my expense report library. Now what we've done, and we've used the expense report on a lot of our demos in the past, what we've done here is we've added a receipt attachment. In fact, we've already had the receipt attachment in the form, but we weren't changing the size of the receipts attachment. So this form actually is something you should, if you've been to our webinars in the past, you've seen us demo this. So I'm going to actually fill this out real quick, and I'm going to actually add an office expense for coffee, my favorite demo item. And here's where I get to attach that receipt. So I'm going to choose that file, and we've got I want two images. Now this command works for multiple images, so let's just add two images. We're going to add the actual receipt for the coffee, and then we'll add a picture of the coffee on the table, the picture you just saw. And the reason why I want to do that is I want to get a large image. That one's 4 megabytes. This receipt isn't actually that large. Whatever, it's just it's not really an expense, but I'm going to add it anyway because I want to show you this. That's a 4 megabyte, roughly a 4 megabyte image. And it takes a little bit, it takes almost I don't know, half a second to upload. I got a pretty fast connection here in Japan. I'm just going to call this a $0 event here. Okay, it automatically adds a new row, but I don't need that, so I'm going to remove that. Now, we've got these two receipts on my expense report, right? So you can imagine someone on their cell phone, they're filling this out, and they're taking snapshots of their receipt, and they're attaching it to their expense report. And then they're going to hit the submit command. So here's where we see the kind of the cool new what do we call it, overlay. So this overlay has these 4 different buttons: small, medium, large, and actual. And you can see that for the large and the actual size, we actually have an asterisk, and we're saying that's okay for OCR. And this is actually based on Google's recommendation. Believe it or not, in our testing, we found that even small images, you can actually get the OCR to work. But let's choose large for now. And what it's going to say is it's going to say all your images are going to be scaled to large. Are you sure you want to go ahead with that? And so yes, we're going to do that. And it's going to do a lot of processing. It's going to actually, first of all, it's going to alter those images, scale them down to 1024 by 768, which affects the second image more than the first one because the first one's actually smaller. Then it's going to run a PDF generation to generate a PDF with the images on it. And we have to do that. So here's the PDF, right? Boom, we get the PDF, and it's actually still running, I believe, in the background here. So the PDF is, if you're not familiar with the features in FormsViewer, we added this feature quite a while ago. We're actually adding it for on-prem soon. In fact, by the end of November, we'll have a build out. Our next release is going to be the on-prem version of 3.2, which we just released the online version. The online version has had the PDF print for over a year now. You can see how those images appear. in the printout there. They're one per page, and that's kind of nice. We have a repeating section with a page break on it. I'll talk more about that in a second. And if we go back to our form, hey, everything's successful. Great. So now I should get an email in a minute. Our flow, our Microsoft Flow we're using to generate the email is a little bit slow, but I'll get an email in a second with the links to open up the expense report. Of course, I can just go back to my library and click on it here, and I'll just show you that the images are still there, number one. Even though we did upload them after generating the PDF, we are still including links to the images so you can see them. So if I'm the reviewer of this expense report, I can still see the attached images by clicking on this view button here. And you'll see there's the image for my coffee. And I've also got the OCR. I can look at how Google translated the OCR. So that worked out really well. And the second image here, which was scaled down, is the image of the coffee on the table, right? Obviously, there's no OCR for that because there's no text in it, right? So it is working really well, and I can approve the expense report if I want. But the other thing I want to show you is that we've done some extra things. So we've actually taken those images and we've uploaded them. In addition to generating the PDF, we've uploaded the images to the attachments, to an attachments folder. So I create a folder, stuff the images in it, and also put the PDF in it. So here's the PDF for the generated expense report. You can see that that's exactly what we saw pop up in our browser a minute ago. If I can get this to look a little bit better. So this is exactly the same one I just submitted here. Okay, so let's summarize here what I just did, and I'll show you how I did it in a second. But so the first thing I did was I added this default photo control to my form. That's just out of the box. And then on submit, what I'm doing is I'm using that alter image command to scale the image down or up. And that's a little bit of a conundrum because you could end up having a very small image, and if they choose large, it's going to actually increase it. We need to be smarter about giving them the option of that. Actually, the iPhone is smart. It actually will tell you how big your images are today and what it would take, how big they will get if you, how much you'll reduce them in size if you choose those options. In our case, though, we're allowing users to attach anything. They may not be taking a photo with their phone. They may be attaching an image. So we don't really know how big it is. But you're going to use this command to scale it. So that alter image command allows you to change the size of it. And that's the new command that is the purpose of the demo this week, is the alter image command. It's got a lot of features. It has the ability to change the size, also to change the quality. So we could have changed the quality to reduce the size, but in this case, I just changed the size. I didn't change the quality, so I didn't want to affect the OCR. I wanted to keep the OCR running. To force the users to limit the size, we have a rule. Let's take a look at the form. So in the form here, this is my form, right? So in my form, I have a rule on the submit. It's actually on the pre-submit. So I've got this pre-submit rule, and we've centralized all the logic in the secondary data source called form logic here. Many of you are familiar with this approach. And if we look at the pre-submit node here, you'll see that we have a bunch of rules on pre-submit, and one of them is to file size limit exceeded. So here, we're actually prompting the user, if the size is greater than 4 million bytes, I think that this is it right here. So the sum of all the images is greater than this, then we put up this prompt. Now let's see that in action. Let's do this one more time and actually add more than 4 megabytes, because I didn't demo that. So I'm going to try this one more time here. There's my notification finally on my expense report. So this time I will just add a couple large images and we'll see it actual limit. It'll prompt us with the warning that we've exceeded the size. So I don't need to have a description or anything in here. I'm just going to add a couple large images. So we've got this 4 megabyte one. That'll should take us over the limit if I choose the actual size. We'll add one more just to make sure we're over the limit. And once again, I'm not going to actually submit this. I just want to show you the validation working. We could add that image again if we wanted to, but I'll add something else that's also large. And now if I hit submit, to make sure that the validation is correct, can't have an expense report in the future, or you can't have an expense in the future. Okay, and now we're going to pick the actual size, and it's saying here that your attached receipts exceed 4 megabytes in total size. It's actually not 4 megabytes in the condition, but you get the idea. You can reduce them by scaling the image to a smaller resolution. So that warning message is actually what we see here in this command. It says, this is our curls command to throw that prompt on the screen. Prompt, title, warning, so-and-so. And this is the same command that I copied into the slide deck here. So that's how you you validate the size of the images. You use the sum command on the repeating section with all of your images, and you just compare that to a number. And if it exceeds that, then you prompt them and you stop running the rules. You'll see that there's a condition here. Well, this is just prompting. It's actually not stopping the rules. I would have expected it to stop the rules. I think it is stopping it though, but I forget where it's stopping it. But anyway, that's how you do it. To print the PDF, we're using another one of our curls commands. I alluded to that a minute ago, and that is right here. We're actually running the command render form, and we're passing in some parameters, the format of the rendering, which in this case is PDF, the view we want to render. And here I want to show you the view actually, because this is really important that, number one, that you don't run the PDF command after you've uploaded the images, because you have to have the images in the form, because the PDF generation is running on the server and it won't have access to your SharePoint login. So you have to run the PDF command before you upload the images, and you're going to want to have a view that looks kind of like this. And you can see at the bottom here we've got this repeating section. At the very top of the repeating section, it might be hard to make it out, but there's a dividing line. There's a page break right there, and that's what's breaking the page for every image. Then we just have the image centered down below with auto for it. So that makes it look good. Okay, so that's how we did the print PDF. And then lastly, the final technique, the uploading the images. This is the save to SharePoint command, and this is actually in, once again, if we go back to our form logic, you'll see that we're actually saving the images right here. And this is just the save to SharePoint command. And I've copied that here as well. So you can see the technique here. We have a URL for the site. We're automatically determining that on open, and we're saving the attachments there. The benefit of saving the attachments and replacing them with links is, especially after the PDF is generated, you can reduce the size of the XML even further so that the image isn't even in it. But you don't have to do that step. You can leave the images in your form. And if you don't know when you're going to generate the PDF, or if you have to generate the PDF at different stages in your workflow, you may not want to upload the images until after that's all done. Maybe you're during the archival step, or maybe you want the images to be in the form as part of your audit trail. So that last technique here is an optional one. Okay, so that's pretty much it for my demo and explanation. If you've got questions, it's a great time to put your questions in the question area. Once again, we're very happy that Microsoft recognized us last month at MS Ignite. We were one of 11 charter partners that Microsoft mentioned as being leaders in pushing the Power Platform, which includes Power BI, Microsoft Flow, and Power Apps. And the reason why they chose us is we've been doing Power Apps for customers for many years now. So we definitely recommend, if you're using Office 365, that in you're developing new forms, that you look at Power Apps. If you have existing InfoPath forms, these forms aren't going to just migrate to Power Apps with no effort. You're going to have to spend a lot of time and money to do that. And that's why we developed FormsViewer, because FormsViewer takes those existing investments, keeps them running, and also extends them with new features like Alter Image. So we've added new features. We've added support for mobile CSS, and we also added support for giving you support. So if you get FormsViewer, you can take those existing forms and move them over. If you've got SharePoint on-prem, you can be assured that your forms will continue to function in 2016 and 2025. And no matter what Microsoft does, you've got a solution. You don't have to worry about the sunsetting of InfoPath. And also, you don't even need SharePoint. So FormsViewer doesn't even require SharePoint anymore. It works completely independently, so that can save you on licensing fees. And there's lots of new features like this support for external access, and we've done with this in the past. And anyway, we'd love to have you as a Power App, Power Platform customer, or as a FormsViewer customer, and I know many of you already are. And thanks, Pete, for that kind comment there at the end there. I don't have any other questions except for your comment. You guys were the inspiration behind this. Really happy that you could attend this morning, and happy that you thought that this was a decent webinar. Any other questions for me before we sign off? I want to thank you again for joining me today. We'll get the webinar posted on YouTube. We'll get the package uploaded and send it to you. There's a short 4-question survey with one crazy question at the end here. I hope you all have a great day, and talk to you next week. Take care.